So, how are you holding up? I know exactly the phase you are in. You are grinding through optional. The excitement of clearing prelims is fading, and there is that quiet, heavy pressure that this is the examination that can literally reshape the course of your entire life. I want to be very direct with you. The candidate who lifts their sociology optional score from a 50 range to a 300 plus range is not the one who reads more. It is the one who learns to look at a live news event and instantly hear the correct thinker and the correct concept ringing in their head. That syncing, current affairs on one side, thinker and concept on the other, is what today is entirely about. In this issue, 47, of the Sociology Desk, I am going to walk you through two events from paper 1 and paper 2. By the end, you will know exactly which theorist to anchor each answer on and exactly how to write it to score. Event 1. On the 12th of June this year, the International Labour Organization, the ILO, adopted Convention 193, the very first global standard specifically for platform and gig economy work. India abstained on that vote. At the same time, India rolled out its 4 labor codes, consolidating 29 older labor laws into 4, with the target date of the 1st of April this year. Now, on the surface, this looks like law. It is not. In sociology optional terms, this belongs to paper 1, unit 6, Works and Economic Life, and it also feeds paper 2 on informal sector and working class. Let me show you how to open this in an answer. The core concept you have to teach yourself here is what I call algorithmic control, and it is not new. Think about a delivery worker on your neighborhood app. They log in the morning. They may sit for 11 hours without a single order. If they try to log out, they are fined about 1,000 rupees on a weekday, 2,000 on the weekend. When an order arrives, they must complete it in 10 minutes, tracked by a geofence. Their pay is per delivery. Now step back. What you are looking at is a 19th century factory arrangement redistributed through a smartphone. The supervisor is not a human foreman shouting on a shop floor. The supervisor is a set of instructions embedded in software. The moment you see it that way, two thinkers become unavoidable. Thinker 1, Karl Marx. In Capital Volume 1, Marx describes what he calls the industrial reserve army of labor. His argument was that capitalism does not just tolerate a pool of unemployed and underemployed workers, it actively needs it. That waiting pool disciplines the workers who are on the job, and it keeps wages depressed to the exploitable minimum. Now look at the gig worker again, sitting logged in without an order. That is the reserve army in digital form. And notice what happens to the classical concept of alienation. Marx said, the worker under capitalism is estranged from the product, from the process, and from other workers. Here, the estrangement is deepened because the worker cannot even see the supervisor. The supervisor is code. If you land Marx cleanly at this point in your answer, you have already earned a mark that most candidates will miss. Thinker 2, and this is the sync that will genuinely surprise your examiner, Frederick Winslow Taylor. In his work, The Principles of Scientific Management, Taylor argued that the manager's job is to break work down into measurable motions, time each one, and separate the thinking part of the job from the doing part. That is Taylorism. Now, a candidate at 14 marks will stop there, treat Taylor as a historical figure, and move on. A candidate at 18 or 19 marks will do the following. They will say, Taylor's stopwatch has been replaced by the geofence. Taylor's foreman on the shop floor has been replaced by the app dashboard. Taylor's time and motion study has been replaced by the algorithm that calculates your fastest route. Scientific management, in short, did not die. It got dispersed into code. That is the single sentence that lifts your marks. Now put on your examiner hat with me for a moment. I have sat with these scripts. Here is what I see. A 14 out of 20 answer opens by defining the gig economy. It then narrates the ILO convention. It lists India's labor codes. It ends by saying gig workers need protection. That is a report, not a sociology answer. An 18 or 19 out of 20 answer does something different. It opens with one line. The platform economy is a structural transformation of the wage relation, not a variant. It then anchors on Marx, using reserve army and alienation, in 3 sentences. It moves to Taylor, showing algorithmic management as scientific management dispersed into code, in 3 sentences. It brings in an Indian anchor, Jan Bremen, and his idea of footloose labor to explain why India abstained on the convention while creating a middle category of platform worker. It uses the 10-minute delivery clock as one line of evidence, not 5. And it closes with, formalization without breaking piece rate coercion leaves the wage relation extractive in form. Feel the difference. Same event, same law. But the second answer is anchored in theory. That is what the examiner is quietly rewarding. The current event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. A probable mains 2026 question on this event. Paper 1, 20 marks. In the light of the ILO Convention on Decent Work in the Platform Economy, critically examine whether Taylor's scientific management remains an adequate framework for understanding algorithmic control in the gig economy. If this appears, and there is a real chance it will, you now know exactly what to write. Event 2. The European Union has now been projected to enter a period of population decline starting this very year, 2026. The United Nations World Population Prospects further tells us that by the end of this century, the number of people over 65 will exceed the number of those under 18. This is not an economics topic. It is a Paper 2 Sociology Optional topic. It sits in Unit C6, Population Dynamics, specifically emerging issues around aging. And it also gives you Paper 1 leverage on systems of kinship. Let me show you why. The most examinable concept here is deceptively simple. It is the idea that a family is not a thing. It is a set of activities. In old sociology, we described families by their structure: nuclear, joint, extended. When you are writing about aging, that language collapses. Think about a middle-class Indian family today. The son is a nurse in the Gulf. The daughter is in Bangalore. The parents are aging in a small town in Kerala. There is no shared household anymore. But there is still a family. The son is sending money every month. The daughter is coordinating the mother's hospital admission over the phone. A live-in attendant, paid for by both, is doing the daily care. That, sociologically, is what family now is: an ongoing set of practices, not a fixed structure. Which brings me directly to the thinker you must reach for. Thinker 1, David Morgan. In his work, Family Connections, Morgan makes what I consider one of the most quietly powerful moves in contemporary sociology. He argues that we should stop treating the family as a noun and start treating it as a verb. The family, he says, is best understood as an ensemble of everyday practices through which relatedness is enacted and reproduced. Now you see why the aging society illustrates this so cleanly. The household form is dissolving, but the practices, the money sent, the calls made, the care organized at a distance, those practices continue. If you drop Morgan's family practices concept into a paper 2 answer on aging, you are miles ahead of the standard script that just talks about the joint family collapsing. Thinker 2, and I insist that you always include an Indian theorist in a gender argument, Leela Dubey. In her work, Women and Kinship, Dubey argues that South Asian kinship is not gender neutral at its core. It encodes gendered ideology in its very structure. In the classical seed and earth idiom, where the man is the seed and the woman is the field. Now bring this to aging. The unpaid caregiver in the aging Indian household, the daughter-in-law, the wife, the daughter, is disproportionately female. This is not accidental. Dubey tells you that the kin structure itself compels it. And this is where the answer opens up. Because you can now say the aging crisis in India is being absorbed by women's unpaid time. That is a paper 2 claim of examination grade quality. Now step into the examiner's chair with me. A 14 out of 20 answer opens by defining aging population using a demographic threshold. It lists government schemes. It mentions the joint family. It closes with a general statement about the elderly needing support. That is narration. The 18 or 19 out of 20 answer moves like this. It opens with a structural claim. Aging is a reconfiguration of family, work, and welfare simultaneously. It anchors on Morgan, family as verb, in 3 sentences. It brings in Talcott Parsons on structural differentiation and argues that aging partially reverses that process because welfare functions the family had surrendered are now returning to it. It then anchors, and this is critical, on Leela Dubey, showing that this returning welfare burden falls disproportionately on women. It uses the EU projection and the UN framework as one line of evidence, not 3 paragraphs. It closes by naming the family as the residual welfare institution across aging democracies. Notice, the theorist does the work. The current event is only there as evidence. That is the sink you must build muscle memory for. Answer after answer, event after event. A probable mains 2026 question on this. Paper 2, 20 marks. Aging societies test the adequacy of Parsons' theory of structural differentiation. Critically examine with reference to the reconfiguration of care in India and the West. When you see a question of that architecture, you must not narrate demographic data. You must anchor on Parsons. Then use Morgan and Dubey to complicate him. That is the winning move. Let us fix today into muscle memory. Event 1. Platform work and the labor codes. You sync on Marx with reserve army and alienation. On Taylor with scientific management dispersed into the algorithm. And you close with Jan Bremen on India's footloose labor. Event 2. Aging and the demographic divide. You sync on David Morgan with family practices, on Talcott Parsons with structural differentiation and its partial reversal, and on Leela Dubey for the gender line. And the single most important rule that ties both together: the current event is your evidence. The theory is always your destination. Rehearse it that way, every day, until it becomes automatic. Wishing you well as you close today's revision. Let me leave you with just one line. The real difference between the aspirant who cracks this examination and the one who does not is almost never intelligence. It is the ability to keep showing up, one honest day at a time. when the whole world around you would understand if you paused. Sustain the rhythm. That is the secret. If you would like the complete answer block for every event, the model answer, the answer skeleton, the quotation arsenal, the flashcards, and the examiner notes we prepare every single day, you can either drop your email in the comments below or write in directly to the team at upscdesk.com, and the team